All right. Hello and welcome everyone to the Devstream 132 breakdown. So we have a ton to talk about today. A lot of changes are coming to Warframe as early as next week. Big systems are getting implemented that I didn't think were coming until Railjack, and stuff is happening, which is very good news. But we're going to start off with the one thing that we're going to talk about today that is not coming literally next week, hopefully next week, might be the week after. They said hopefully it's releasing next week, just to clarify. But the thing that is not coming out next week is going to be Hydroid Deluxe. So this is another Liger design, and it looks absolutely amazing, and it's good that Hydroid is going to be getting a deluxe skin, as he does not have one yet. And it looks awesome. The one thing that concerns me with this, as it is only a concept, they were talking about his coat being a Sindana, and if it's a Sindana, that is, it probably won't look how it does in the concept with it being like draped over his shoulders and things. But the way they talked about it was it might be a custom Sindana, an auxiliary, which then it would probably look akin to how it does in the concept art, which would be really, really awesome. Hopefully it doesn't get changed into just being a Sindana, because then it would have to fit onto all the Warframes, and then it would probably be kind of just like a blocky coat, and you'd have like a coat hanger on your back. And that would probably be a bit unfortunate. But hopefully it comes together and looks really cool. Even without the coat, it seemed to look really nice, so that's fine. But the coat is, of course, the coolest part of this to me. So that's Hydroid and his Deluxe. That is coming at some point, but not with this update as far as I know. So there's that. Now let's get into everything that is coming in Update 26. Okay, so the melee changes we're going to talk about last, but let's talk about the boost we're going to get because of melee changing. So because melee is changing and they know that builds are likely to change and all this stuff, we are getting some boosters, probably some Forma, if I had to take a guess. They weren't super specific on what's going to be given out, but anyone who logs in for Update 26, I think they said the first week of the update is going to be getting all this stuff, boosters and all that some such, and also a legendary core. So definitely want to grab all that stuff and then probably have to drastically change some melee builds. We will, of course, talk about that at the end, though, as I discussed. Also, weirdly coming in this update are Liches. The Kuva Liches are coming in this update, which is kind of wild, because I was under the impression that that was going to be coming quite a bit later on, but we are getting the Liches, which are these guys. We're getting the Grineer Liches, and they are just going to be in the star chart. I thought that this was more closely tied to Railjack than it is, apparently. Apparently, Railjack is just a thing where they can be a part of that. And these are going to be in regular missions all across the star chart and have their whole influence thing, as discussed before. And the Parazon, which is the name of the Data Blade-like thing that we saw in the TennoCon demo, is going to be coming with this update as well, which has some things to it that we'll go into. So basically, for Kuva Liches, their weapons have been changed. So like you'll have like the Kuva Tonkor and the Kuva Kraken and Kuva other weapons and such, and very importantly, the Kuva Dubba Stubba, the two Stubbas at once. If it's not called the Dubba Stubba, that's a crime, by the way, and I really want it. All those weapons are going to reward mastery rank once. There are going to be variants due to the modifiers on the Lich affecting that. But you'll get one Kuva Tonkor, and it'll have like an electricity bonus or whatever. And then leveling that will mean you don't need to level like a Kuva Tonkor that has a toxin bonus on it, because you've already leveled the Kuva Tonkor in general. So basically anything in like the tree of possible variants that you level will count for the mastery for all of them. You don't need to go level every different variant of the different Tonkors and stuff like that. But you will need like the one Kuva Tonkor of any variety, and then like one Kuva Kraken of any variety, and so on and so forth. So there is going to be mastery involved in this system, and at the very least, that will be a reason to go and get these weapons from these Liches. With that stuff, there's a little bit to talk about with the Parazon, but we'll get to that down in the Parazon section. So we have the Vauban and Ember reworks. Those are coming. They didn't talk about them a huge amount. It seems like they're going to basically be what they discussed on the last dev stream, which is hopefully going to turn out pretty good. Hopefully that comes out well. But those two reworks are coming in this update, and we are getting Grendel. So the way to get Grendel is going to be a little bit different than normal. So he's going to have a Lavirian, just like Goss did. So he'll have that like cool lore area to explore. But the way that you're going to get Grendel is going to be through arbitrations. So in the Arbitration Arbiter's store, you're going to be able to spend Vitus Essence to get 3 different keys that are 3 different missions that are supposed to be quite hard. And completing those missions is a guaranteed drop of each Grendel part. So, provided that you can do this content, provided you have like arbitrations unlocked, and then you're able to do the missions that it gives you, it should be very easy to get Grendel and like a guaranteed path to unlock him, which is nice. That being said, I would imagine a lot of people don't have arbitrations unlocked, so if you are looking forward to Grendel, I would do that now and get a little bit of Vitus Essence, store it up so you can just immediately purchase those keys and start doing them to get Grendel if you're really looking forward to that Warframe. Because you'll be able to do kind of that farm a little bit in advance. Along with that, another thing that's going to be added to arbitrations is there's going to be a new Iatan available for Vitus Essence, so you're going to be able to have a kind of infinite pool to just like throw Vitus Essence into to get even more endo, so that's cool. I really would have also liked to see the ability to get say like orange stars, or like it's like a pack of like 5 orange like Iatan stars for like 25 Vitus Essence or something like that would be really nice to see in addition to this, because orange stars kind of few and far between. There's not a whole lot of them, so that would be nice to see. But still nice to have like a dump for Vitus Essence just in Arby's in general, and that'll be a way to get even more endo out of them, which is nice. Now, let's talk about the Parazon, which is, again, that Data Blade. That is going to be taking on some mods that are already in the game. It's going to be a thing that you always have. You're always going to have this with you, and it has some special mechanics. So it's going to be the thing you're going to use to revive allies. It'll be the thing you use to kill liches, which I'll get more into in a second. And it is also now going to be the thing that equips Covert Lethality. So Covert Lethality will no longer be on daggers. Covert Lethality is going to just be on the Parazon. What that is going to mean for Covert Lethality is not entirely clear, but I would imagine the Parazon is going to be taking the finisher role and be the thing that is going to do finishers for us. And that will be why Covert Lethality is applied there instead, because that just makes sense. That, notably, could make Inaros quite a bit better, because he would always have access to good finishers, which would activate his passive, and he'd also have access to a good melee weapon in addition to that, but that could drastically shift with the melee changes we're about to talk about. But more importantly, the Parazon is going to be used for killing Kuva Liches, and the method with which you're going to kill Kuva Liches is kind of weird. So, there are going to be new mods added to the game called Immortal mods. These are for the Parazon specifically. And, before I go any further with talking about this, I just want to say, shoutouts to the fucking art team. The border on, like just the look of these mods, fucking really, really cool. But, as you guys can probably see by just reading the text on the mod, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, doesn't have stats. That's kind of weird. So the whole thing with these Immortal mods is these Immortal mods are kind of a secret code or a sequence to each Kuva Lich. So the Kuva Liches are randomly generated, and they will have a randomly generated sequence that you need to figure out in order to be able to kill them or convert them to your side. The benefits of converting them to your side are not entirely clear currently, besides that they will occasionally help you out in combat and stuff, and as Steve puts it, they will be there when you need them. But basically, you're going to build a collection of these, and you're going to be killing the Kuva Liches and their underlings with the Parazon, and trying to figure out the sequence of these that works to kill them. So basically, you're going to put these into the Parazon, and whenever you use it to try and kill a Kuva Lich or one of their underlings that have the same blood code, it is going to give you a report on like what worked and what didn't. And you're going to have to be like, okay, these ones worked, these ones didn't, remove the ones that didn't work, put ones in I haven't tried yet to try and actually get the kill on the Kuva Lich to finish them off and get their weapon. This is kind of cool. It's kind of like you're cracking a safe, only the safe fights back. And that seems like it has the potential to be really neat. I think personally that could be a really fun system for Kuvuliches to go through, depending on depending on how many chances you have to figure it out, like how many chances you can get within, like, say, like a couple hours of playing. Like, how fast are these liches really going to be able to be taken down? Obviously, usually items have 8 slots that we can use, and it depends on how long the sequence on them is for the immortal mods. Like, if it's only 4 of them that need to be figured out, then you can try 8 at a time. You could probably figure these out pretty fast and like kill them or convert them to your side fairly quickly. But if it's like it has to be a perfect 8, that might change the dynamic on that stuff. But all that stuff aside, the Kuvulich stuff seems super interesting. The way that the immortal mods are seems like a really cool mechanic just to add to the game, to basically have this tool where mods are like a code rather than a build, if that makes sense. That seems like a really interesting concept that I am glad they are doing. Besides that, the update is also, for Halloween business, going to contain the vampire Kavats, so we are going to have that new strain of Kavats, and also they showed off that at Master T's and I on Cetus, you're going to be able to get a thing that cures Kavats of vampirism type stuff. I don't know what that is going to mean in the long run for Kavats, like if it will change a Kavat from what it is into the vampire Kavat. That would be kind of unfortunate. But if it like spawns a new Kavat, or I'm not sure how it's exactly going to work. But the vampire Kavats are coming in update 26. It'll be interesting to see how that is actually ends up being implemented. And finally, here we have the weapon Exilus being implemented. So the weapon Exilus, I discussed a little bit before that I think that they are problematic, and the reason for that is this. I actually have the image from the stream. This right here. So you can see on the bottom here, Rebecca was looking at the Exilus mods, so you can see a bunch of examples of mods that would be allowed in this Exilus slot. Like you have ammo drum, and you have like the silencer mods and things like that, and like ammo mutation and all that business. But you can see that this weapon is the Baza, and it has 6 forma in it. 6 forma deep, and the Baza comes with polarities. But this is 6 forma deep into this weapon. And still, not all of the mods in this are maxed. And Speed Trigger, notably, should instead probably be an elemental for effective build making. So the problem here is that this shit just isn't going to work out. Like, the cost to benefit ratio for this Exilus slot on weapons is just not very good. And I think it needs to change in order for people to actually ever want to use it. Because the main thing is that you're going to have to use like an Exilus adapter or some weapon equivalent to unlock this extra slot. And then, in addition to that, it needs to be forma'd. And then you need like to forma all the other slots to have enough room for that mod. And these mods, they're not DPS. They are like auxiliary mods that might be nice to have for your like gameplay comfort on certain weapons. Like the Twin Yurkata probably want ammo mutation, I guess, because that weapon already needs to use that regardless. And like other weapons, like maybe you want a silencing thing on there because you're playing Avara or something. But these like really niche scenarios, I think, boil down to mean that the huge, insane cost of actually being able to put something in these slots after you already filled up the weapon with mods, it's just not going to work. I personally feel that once this slot is unlocked, you should go through like the trouble of getting an Exilus adapter or the equivalent for these slots. Once you've gone through the trouble of doing all that, the mod that gets put into this slot should be free. It should not cost you any mod points. It should be absolutely devoid of all mod point usage, because weapons are already forma monsters in terms of how much forma they want for you to get a full build on them. And this is not helping. So I personally don't think that this is going to be a thing that most people are even going to consider utilizing outside of maybe their like 2 favorite weapons, maybe 5 max. because it's probably going to be such a gigantic pain in the ass just to form a weapons like going on like 8 times just to get this one more mod in there. And that is a big problem. So I am not excited for that at all. Hopefully there is some change that comes to that to make that a realistic thing that people could actually do instead of just being a slot that is almost never filled on weapons. But yeah, that's unfortunate the way that seems to be going, but I guess it's completely ignorable in general anyway. Now, moving on to melee changes. There's a lot here. There is an entire melee workshop up that I'm going to do an entire video on, going over exactly what all of the stuff means once this update is out. So, a lot of the stuff that's in the melee workshop, I cannot specifically talk about like how it's affecting the game until it is affecting the game, because so much stuff is up in the air. I am going to very briefly talk about some of the general changes and the most important change of all, which is range. So, I have in all caps range changes, and the reason I have that in here is because of this note in the big workshop that they put out. This note right here is hugely important. It is about reach and prime reach, and more specifically the highlighted portion, which is that long range weapons were getting too much of a benefit. Here's the deal. Range is the reason to use melee weapons. The melee weapons that currently have a good large range, that is the reason to use them, because they can effectively take down groups of enemies in Warframe. What I would like this to mean, what I would hope, what this is actually trying to portray, is that reach and prime reach are going to be receiving changes, and weapons that are very long reaching and use prime reach right now are going to stay about the same. This is my hope. I would hope they stay about the same, maybe just lowered very small amount, maybe like half meter on like the Kamacuris or something like that. Hopefully that is what happens to the very long weapons, and instead bringing up these short weapons to be more viable options. For example, let's say the Kamacuris is 10 meters at current. Let's say that's what its range is with primed reach, just as a hypothetical. You have that, and then with this update, that goes down to like 9.5. But you take a weapon with prime reach, like say the Venka Prime, and they go from like 2.5 meters up to like 7.5, so that they have enough range with primed reach to be considered worth using in comparison to like the Kamacuris Reaper and Zaws and other very high range weapons that we have in the game. That's what I would personally like to happen, because then the small difference in range, which is still considerable, 2 meters is not nothing, but it's a much more like tiny consideration as compared to what we have now, which is either a lot of range or almost none. Changing that dynamic would be more of a choice on what you want to aesthetically and what you think is cool to use in terms of melee being viable, and what is like good. Would be those two things would be a lot closer, where you'd be able to use the Venka because you like the cool Wolverine claws, and they're almost as good in terms of range as like the highest range weapons in the game. It wouldn't be different enough as to completely invalidate the Venka Prime. That would be the ideal situation that we would get into. That would be what these range changes actually mean. What I worry about is that instead the situation that we are getting is that the like Venka is going to go up to like a 4, and the Kamacuris is going to go from like a 10 to like a 5. That's what I worry will happen, because that will make melee, let's call it considerably less good. Let's call it bordering on not being used anymore bad. That's what I hope doesn't happen. But I hope that it turns out well. All the other changes that are coming with melee seem to be good for the game at large, because they are simplifying combo stuff, and like blocking is coming back, or like actual blocking, because you're going to be able to have a choice to just raw equip the melee weapon like you could before. That stuff is good. Blocking in general is getting buffed. It is going to be an angle in front of you depending on your weapon type, and it will have 100% damage blocking, so that is considerably more useful, because 100% damage reduction, pretty good, turns out. Combo counter changes are interesting, and I'll have to play with them to really know what they mean for how combo is going to be used in the game, because combo counter is going to, as they've said, build considerably faster, but be used as a resource to use these large, heavy attacks. So that will be interesting where that goes. Channeling is getting completely removed in favor of this lift system, where you're going to be able to like have enemies like you'll slam the ground and they'll hover in the air, and you'll be able to air combo them and do cool things like that. Exalted Weapons are all going to be getting changed with this update as well, so those are all going to receive a pass. And then also, they are changing it so that in addition to you being able to do combos in a much easier way, because all the combo paths are going to be normalized into much easier to do things, as they are with Wukong at current, there's also going to be dodge canceling implemented into every single melee weapon. So no matter what like melee swing you are currently doing, you're going to be able to dodge out of it at any given point, which is a really nice change. That's actually one of the current benefits to using Gauss with a melee weapon, is that his 1 is an animation cancel for any melee strike, and it makes him considerably better. So I can only imagine that the dodge stuff, as long as they don't ruin the range of melee, will only make melee a much more fun thing to do, because dodge canceling turns out is really fucking awesome. But yeah, there are a lot of changes that are potentially really fun and good and mix up melee, and like we have like essentially 3 new Warframes to try out, with Vauban and Ember being reworked and Grendel coming out, and the Liches seem really fun. But the big, huge thing here is whether or not range is going to get absolutely fucking tanked with melee, and if it's not, then this update looks awesome. Seems really fun. But for me personally, most of the reason at current why I like playing Warframe is melee, because I really love melee. And if that becomes just not that fun to use anymore, that's pretty problematic for my wants to play Warframe in future, which I really hope it's not bad. Really fucking hoping it's not a bad thing, but it has me worried. So yeah, that is the Devstream 132 breakdown. I hope you guys enjoyed this. The changes are coming next week. There's going to be a lot of videos. Also, worth noting, I streamed the entire Devstream, like me watching the Devstream, and talked about it for like an hour after the Devstream was over. So if you guys want to go to twitch.tv/Brozime, that is like there, like just available to just like watch if you guys want to see that stuff. If you're planning to watch the full stream or whatever. And all that stuff. And of course, I stream tons. There's going to be tons of streams this week and next. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy that stuff as well as this video. And I will see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.